Attorney Bederow has a number of items as well.
Mr. Bederow.
Thank you, Judge.
Honestly, go fuck yourself, sir. You don't say that, okay? You don't lose a trial where a jury acquits someone and finds them overwhelmingly not guilty and say, I gave my sincere obligation to look into this, and I'm telling you all I saw when she's guilty. Again, respectfully, go fuck yourself.
Swear again like that. That was, you know, no, I mean, whatever. That was, I shouldn't have done that.
A few moments later.
You, as a prosecutor, have got to be out of your fucking mind.
Little burgers, little sausage, a little that macaroni, a little homemade mac and cheese. How you doing? A little watermelon, right? Why can't they enjoy that for a little bit?
Hey, Blues Clues, motherfucker.
It never gets old, Mr. Bederow. It's my favorite of all time.
Shouldn't swear so much, but sometimes you do. So whatever.
It's magic.
You know, if you pick your spots, it applies. That's all I can say.
It sure does. Well, happy Sunday, August 3rd, 2025. I put out a little bit of a back call to you today and said, Mr. Bederow, are you available for a little chat sesh with me? And as usual, you oblige, even when you think to yourself, you know, I have other things I could do, but I'll spend a little time with Kim.
I'm here.
You sure are.
Here.
And just in the spirit of our shows together, it came to my attention on my a timeline or anniversary that tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of my YouTube channel.
Really?
And who was the first live of the first show that I ever had?
Well, when you build it up like that, I'm going to have to assume moi.
It was. You were the first show, and I was like, how appropriate and how incredible that Mr. Bederow is coming on with me, you know, right around the same time. So it's my stream anniversary, it's our friendship anniversary, and I have just a little clip to see exactly how far, like, technology, all right, I got a boom. I figured out that I didn't need to be like 7 rows shorter than you in the, in how our picturing looks, but we've come a long way in 1 year. So this is my ode to Mr. Bederow. We're going to bring on Mr. MARKBEDEROW, and I want to make some merch for him that says, uh-oh, better call Bederow. I don't know. All right, I'll work on it with him.
How are you?
Hi, Mr. Bederow.
I love the Better Call Saul comparison. In fact, back here on my shelf, I have my Better Call Saul bobblehead. So,
listen,
yes.
I knew that about you. See, there are things that I would figure you would enjoy that.
You know, Better Call Saul is actually somewhat realistic. Not the drama part of it, but I don't know how close you watch that show, but there's about a season or two where he's working at a law firm, a semi-large law firm in New Mexico. That's very realistic, that law firm type of life. But yeah, Better Call Saul, all-time favorite.
That's awesome. And I was wondering, Mr. Bederow, so when I asked you to do this with me, you were so kind and you were like, Kim, I got you. And I was wanting to go through with you, like, your education and your career, because we know that you know everything that is Karen Reed trial, right? And that you've been our go-to guy. And I have to thank, I will give a thank you to Mr. Mike Crawford of the Young Jerks for introducing us all to you. And, you know, it's been a pleasure to see you on YouTube and in any platform and on Twitter and getting all of your legal takes. But, and also I'll throw out a shout out to Turtle Boy for keeping you in our graces and keeping you in the Massachusetts, you know, circuit court for a while. But, you know, I don't know much about you from, well, I've researched it, but I would like you to maybe, if you're comfortable with talking about, you know, the undergrad of Arizona State. And then did you go to Syracuse Law School?
I did. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
and then
which is just foolish because Arizona's paradise. It's, it doesn't rain except for January and monsoon season. It's sunny every day. I don't think the first year I was out there, I ever wore anything other than shorts, literally at any given time. Weather's perfect, sunny every day. And for some silly reason, I left there and went to law school in pretty much the worst weather in the country, which is upstate New York, which Syracuse, you know, it's in between Buffalo and other godforsaken places where it just snows endlessly. But yeah, no, so I did. And then after Syracuse, I wanted to be a prosecutor. which is, the best job you'll ever have if you do it honorably and properly. That's certainly open for debate in the case that we're talking about. But so I wanted to be a prosecutor and ended up in what is the preeminent prosecutor's office in the country, which is the Manhattan DA's office. But I'm Boston born and bred. So like anyone else, if you had told me that I would end up in New York City, I would have said that's impossible because like you and everyone else, I was taught to detest the place, hate it, everything about it, primarily the sports.
The sports, right?
Which I still do. And I will tell you, in the first few years I lived there, it was tough in the heyday of the late 90s and early 2000s, Yankees dominance and all that crap. But that worked out okay, as you know. But yeah, I wanted to be a prosecutor. So I applied to a few places and ended up at the top of the hill. And so I moved to Manhattan and worked there for about 5.5, 6 years in the office, which was, again, best job you'll ever have. A lot of fun. And after that, I was recruited by someone I had an interesting case with who brought me into a large law firm. I guess, we were good adversaries, and rather than fight, he, lulled me in and with dollar signs and all kinds of things like that. And eventually you do it. And I stayed there for about 4 years and I liked it, but also determined that I wanted to be my own boss ultimately, rather than traditional large firm partnership, which has many advantages, but also you don't control a lot of what you do in terms of, business politics and that sort of thing. So it's been 2008 already. It's that long ago. Opened my own practice in New York City, in Manhattan, and have been doing that ever since. And I love it. So here I am.
I love that. I can't. How cute.
Well, it's kind of funny. The Better Call Saul stuff. So right now, I am in the process. I'm on vacation and I'm leaving soon, but I haven't left yet. And in the last couple of days that we're here, I've got my son full on into Breaking Bad, and we're doing a full binge watch. And we were already through about 4 seasons, and we'll bang out another 4 or 5 episodes tonight. So it's great hearing. I didn't even recall the references to Better Call Saul back then, but it's great to share that kind of stuff now that he's old enough to appreciate it. So, but happy 1 year of doing this. I didn't realize or remember that exact conversation. I don't talk that fast. That had to be on super fast speed for those watching.
Oh yeah, sorry, loveys. I definitely put I put us on 1.5, so you didn't have to hear.
Yeah.
It was me being so slow that it, gave me agita just thinking about it, being as slow as I was talking. But your responses were incredible, and I remember thinking that, I remember looking you up, Mr. Bederow, and looking through, where you went to college and law school, because I was so impressed of you on with Mike on the Young Jerks and I got to go on with you on his show, and I'd say, Mr. Bederow. And I had always, oh my gosh, it was always Mr. Bederow from day one. And it just has been a pleasure. And I couldn't believe that a year has already passed. And I feel like that the channel and our loveys have grown so much. We're literally teetering on the verge of 30,000 loveys with us. So, for 1 year, I can't even imagine. I don't know why. I understand why people show up when you're here. Okay. But when it's just me, I'm just, a hot mess express. And it has been a wild ride. And, another trial has come and gone, and we've freed Karen Reed. Oh, happened. And now we are working on the unfortunate and misuse of power in the Commonwealth that continues at every turn, that unfortunately we are seeing in Norfolk County, and including in Aidan Carney, the journalist case that you are very close to. So, we keep on trucking.
I wouldn't call it a case. It's cases. We have
cases.
3 trials planned, and with these people, we'll see if there's any more. And if there are, we'll be ready. There's 1 down, as you know already. But this is going to go on for God knows how long. I mean, you're talking 3 trials, numerous witnesses, different cases, different everything. It's bizarre, but as they said, this is the business we've chosen. So you just go where they send you. I'm sure I've said this to you before. We don't choose this. It's not what we want to do. But if that's the game they want to play, then you roll up your sleeves and you go where they send you, and you kick some ass and go home. That's what you do.
I love it. I love it. And there's been a lot that has gone on. I haven't seen you. I know that you said you are going on vacation. Anywhere amazing? Do I know? Are you feel comfortable to say, or like a state that you're going to, or no?
Look,
No.
there's so many weirdo
Warm?
lunatic, always warm. Again, I went to law school, and as you said in your introduction, godforsaken upstate New York. So I don't want to do any more time upstate, which of course in New York means upstate means up the river. But warm, it'll be pleasant, it'll be fun, it'll be relaxing or not so relaxing. But that's what we do. Kids are home from camp and vacation, so that's kind of the window to do this kind of thing.
I know. And then they're going to be going back to school. I can't even believe I'm going to have 2 high school students. 2 high schoolers, Mr. Bederow.
That's I don't know how you even begin to handle that.
Cut your pearls. Get my pearls. Hopefully. 2 high school girls. And, just living on a prayer every day. I'll say that right now. Yeah.
Well, I'm finding out girls are actually more stressful. I didn't think that would be the case, but I've come to learn that is absolutely the case.
Yeah. Yes. And when they were little, it was because my girls would like sit and color, and I could, dress them and like they would have color. They'd be coloring and watching movies and play with dogs and dollies and their babies. And now I'm paying for that. And all my girlfriends that had sons, like the boys were wild when they were little, and now they're like, it's much more controlled.
I know. But the older they get, I just want to say, can't we just go back and watch Paw Patrol and Sophia the First and Disney Junior and all that nonsense, rather than move into real life stuff? But it's the way of the world. They get older, they become real people. I liked them when they were just clay-minded kids, right? They were just little kids with simple things, and that's not always the case as they get older. And
my mom would always say to me, like, and I didn't believe it at the time, and now I'm like, oh, Nona, you were so right. She would say, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems, right? And especially in today's day and age, and with social media, which I do monitor, but like they're high schoolers now. We've done the job the best that I could. They have the foundation and they know right from wrong, but you still got to just be there I'm still the guide. I might now be more of a taxi and an ATM, but there is a beautiful part of seeing who my daughters are and their personalities, right? Like for me, that has been kind of like exciting, and they're so different than I was when I was their age. Like I was so afraid of anyone judging me, or like I just wanted to fit into the middle of the pack. I never wanted, I just didn't want to stand out for good reasons or bad reasons. And these girls are like, my oldest is an artist, and she's so artistically inclined, and she's so smart and so feeling. And then my youngest is like an activist. And if someone's getting bullied, she is going to like bully the bully. And she is somebody who wants everyone to sit with her, but then she'll also let you know if she doesn't like something you say. She has no problem telling you exactly what's on her mind at all times.
Wonder where that came from.
Yeah, similar, but yes, I would never talk to an adult, or the way that sometimes I go, hello, I'm your mother. But at the same time, times have changed. So I'm just doing the best job that we can. I've never been a mom of, a 15 and almost 16-year-old. So, may the force be with you, and also with you, to all of our parents out there. What a wild ride. And I know that at the end of the day, You just want them to be happy. You want them to be healthy and to be good people. So
That's all you
hope
can.
we're raising them.
Yep.
So,
said.
anywho, Kathy Souza says, Mr. Bederow, he is here. And I wanted to talk to you about just get your take on a couple of new, the motions that have been filed in Commonwealth. Well, it's still actually that same case. I don't know how, but yes, about Karen's Lexus and her cell phone not being returned. And the shocking twist that Adam Lally is apparently unfrickin' reachable, Mr. Bederow. Where is he? God only knows, not returning a phone call. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not shocking. I don't think he's not deeply invested and available. In terms of not returning the phones, in a normal case, if it's over and the prosecution loses and there's no reason to hold evidence, it gets returned. And the reality is her phones should have been returned more than a year ago, because once the phones were imaged, mirrored, extracted, whatever language you want to use, there's no reason for the prosecution to hold them unless the phones themselves are relevant evidence, which in this case they would not have been. You know, if there was a case where there was a robbery and what was stolen was the phone and the defendant's fingerprints are on it, you know, the phone is real evidence, not the data on the phone, but the phone itself. But the case is over. There's no reason to hold the phones or the car unless they have some basis to do so, which they certainly haven't stated. But, you know, as you noted, to just simply not respond at all is pathetic, but it's also part and parcel of what you've seen, you know, from this prosecutor anyway, and to a larger extent from that office and the way they handle their professional obligations and courtesies. But so they'll fight about the phones, and, you know, you've seen some suggestions and innuendos in recent legal filings that might clue people in on why they think they're holding the phones and whatnot. Can't get too much into that other than to say everyone will be ready if that happens. Just put it that way.
Noted. Absolutely. Is there any update on the bail? Like, once you have gone through your trial, and if you are found not guilty, as Karen was, are you entitled to your bail money back? Do you get that back?
1,000%. Even if you're convicted, once you're sent away, if you go away, bail is simply security, if you will, to ensure someone's return to court. And once no need for that security, then it ought to be returned minus whatever court fees there are, payment to the bail bondsman. I mean, they got to make a living, right? That's sort of, but yeah, no, bail is not meant to be something that is kept. It's a security that if you don't come back, it's an incentive. You'll forfeit whoever puts up the bail. I don't know what the situation is with Karen's bail, to tell you the truth. I don't even remember what it ever was. But if she doesn't have her bail back, that would be outrageous if that's the case. I have no idea whether that's the case, but the case is over. She ought to have it back, or more to the point, whoever put forth the bail ought to have it back. So if you have a relative who posted the bail, they would get it back. If it was a friend, whomever. But there's no reason to be keeping bail when a case is over, for sure.
Wow. Well, thank you. That was an education for me, because I had not ever really thought about that after the fact of any trial.
Pure security. It's pure, you show us you can come back and we'll give it back minus whatever fees, costs, whatever the arrangement with the bail bondsman is to take his cut. But, you know, in layman's terms, if you put $100 up for bail minus those costs, when the case is over, you ought to get it back. There's no reason, unless there's some argument that the bail's been forfeited, and that's certainly not the case here.
No.
So if they're holding her bail, that's actually more outrageous than the phones and the car, to tell you the truth. But I don't know that that's the case either.
No, I was just I just asked. I saw somebody, I couldn't click it quick enough, but they said, has Karen got her bail back? And I know that it was initially the $50,000, then when it was for the manslaughter in February of 2022, then when the charges were increased, it was $100,000. But then I know, if correct me if I'm wrong, Loveys, but I thought that it ended up being around I thought 80,000 was what they were able to get for a number. So that should, in theory, and what is the time frame, Mr. Bederow? Because this all feels wild to me. Like, yes, you're 100% supposed to get it back, but like within what, a week? Like within a couple of days, not a month plus, correct?
When I get somebody who's acquitted and they're walking out of there, I would be there within an hour saying, give me my money. Or whoever's money it is. She may not have posted the bail. It might have been her parents. It might have been whatever. But whoever, that's who gets the money back, whoever posted it. But it's not supposed to take any amount of time. In fact, you will often hear, and I don't think we heard it in her case, but at the end of a verdict, and certainly in acquittal, you would usually hear the magic words. I don't think we heard it in this case because everybody was just so focused on getting out of there and getting out to the throngs of people. But you'll hear words like you request the court that bail be exonerated, which is the magic blessing from the court to say, give it back. And just show the proof, and you go to the clerk and you get your money back. So there's no reason it should take a month, a year, a week. Once bail is exonerated, it's exonerated. It should be returned upon request.
Perfect. And it appears a couple of our levies did say 80,000 was correct. And there is, but most of the time you would hear that from the judge. Again, like you're saying, in this specific instance, we didn't hear that, but that is just common practice no matter what state you're in. Like it's like not negotiable at all. Yeah.
Bail is literally security to ensure return. It is not meant to be punitive. It is meant to be, if you don't show up, you will forfeit this. It is an incentive to return. That's the theory of what monetary bail is. So there's no reason to keep it. It is it's a perfunctory thing. It gets exonerated. If a judge doesn't say it right away at the end of a verdict, normally a lawyer will say, Your Honor, just, is bail exonerated? It's exonerated. Case like this, though, it's probably after the fact because they're just, so much. It's so crazy what happened a couple of months ago but I'm sure it's done, and I'm sure she has it back. And, these people don't strike me as the kind of people that are going to wait for this and let them have 1 second more of anything that they have over her than they did. So I imagine this is a giant nothing burger.
Yeah, totally. It was just a question. And I do believe that it would have been 100% included, mentioned, a filing we would have seen if it had not been returned. So
it's perfunctory. It's not, that's not like the phones and the car, which again, their argument or lack of attention seems ridiculous. There's no credible argument about bail. It's literally meant to be a placeholder to say, don't show up. Whoever put this up will forfeit it. It's just a pure incentive to return to court. It's security. It's not punitive. It's not meant to be punitive. Now, of course, it is punitive in the sense that if bail is set and somebody can't afford it, they rot in jail. And that's why you see in a lot of states like New York, where there's been a lot of controversy about getting rid of cash bail for a lot of offenses, because the theory is it did become punitive to people who may not have resources. And then there's controversy going the other way, which is, these crimes are not bail eligible, and you see lunatics getting out who years ago would never get out. There was an article in the New York Post yesterday where 2 convicted murderers who got arrested on drugs and whatnot were released without any bail in Manhattan criminal court for the simple reason the offenses were not even bail eligible. By law, bail could not be set. And whether you agree with that or not, a lot of people believe the idea that two convicted murderers who are committing allegedly new crimes are just being let go. And, trust me, bro, I'll come back. As you can imagine, a lot of times that doesn't happen with a lot of people.
Agreed. And thanks, Will, for bopping in saying our bail is an insurance and you get it back unless you're sentenced to paying a fine of the same amount or more. And I wonder if you know that from personal and or just legal experience.
Yeah. Also, again, it's a little more complicated than that because it depends who put up the bail.
Right.
If Karen's parents put up the bail, they don't, in theory, have to pay her fine if there were a fine. I'm not saying there was. If there were, their position could be, I want my money back, and then the defendant has to pay the fine. So it depends. I mean, it really depends on who put it up and the circumstances, but it's just purely meant to be, it's an incentive.
Yep. And now I do have a question, because if we turned back to the hands of time and saw David Yannetti in court on February 2nd of 2022, when the bail was requested at $50,000 per the Commonwealth and Adam Lally, Mr. Yannetti came up and said, like, hey, this is a first-time offender. Again, this is a manslaughter charge, not a second-degree unaliving. But we have a professor with no criminal record, with medical history and all of our physicians in Massachusetts. And his argument was she is not a flight risk. She is not, she was not going to be leaving Massachusetts for any reason. The judge denied that. The judge did say at that time, we are going to go with the $50,000 bond. But there is a part of me that wonders, the discretionary part of that is decided by specific judges, right? So the judge has that discretion in that case, Mr. Bederow. Yeah.
Yes, but it becomes a political thing, and it becomes a pro forma, the way things are done, or the Chinatown syndrome. Because the reality is, the quintessential issue in setting bail is this person a flight risk, or are they going to return to court, and do we need security to make sure they come back? And when you have someone like Karen at the time, who was charged with manslaughter, which is serious.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, it's considered an unfortunate accident. She's 40-something years old, a pillar of the community, gainfully employed, substantial community ties to the area, has never been arrested. Normally, if you were going purely by the purpose of bail, that would be a ROR, a release on recognizance.
Oh, okay.
Now, again, politics and other things come into play. The case is in the news a little bit. The person who was killed is a popular police officer, and judges, like anyone else, read the paper or are concerned about things and being criticized. And, they set 30, 50, 80,000. So they set something. And at the time the judge sets that bail, I'm sure the judge is acutely aware that someone like Karen, she's not being held. She's going to make it.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win from the court's perspective. I don't want her rotting in jail because it's not proper. On the other hand, I don't want to get, tattooed by the public or other people saying, why are you giving her any kind of treatment? So judges often just split the baby and try to be practical when you're dealing with someone like that. Now, if you had someone like Karen, but different in the sense that they weren't a pillar of the community, and she didn't have the family support she had, didn't have the employment that she had, but you had the same facts, somebody allegedly intoxicated with no criminal record who ran over a police officer, then that person gets $80,000 or $50,000 bail, and they're sitting in jail for weeks, months,
years.
God knows how long. And, you've seen it in some of these other cases in Norfolk County. Discovery is not getting turned over. There's all kinds of delay. Somebody in jail, not getting a speedy trial, and that becomes a concern. But the bail issue in Karen's case was never going to be a real issue. And then, then DAs get cute, so you see right before the first trial, everybody's aware of the failed attempt to indict her and Aiden for witness intimidation in late March of 2024, right at the time jury summonses are going out. She's going to start her first trial. And, you ask yourself, why did they do it then? What's the purpose of that? The purpose of that is to get her bail revoked, right? Get her, now she's in jail. Maybe now she wants to plead guilty. Now her spirit is broken. Now the lawyers are concerned. Now the press is reading about other bad news right around the time they're picking a jury. And so you see a lot of just, abuse of how bail and revocation works. And you've certainly seen that in the other case that were not cases that we won't talk too much about, but you've seen them exploit bail and revocation of bail in certain situations in that case as well. And in one instance, it happened. You saw a 60-day jail for a revocation for something that didn't happen.
Yes, sure did. And that leads me to another kind of hot button issue that's going to be coming up for specifically this week. We did see Adam Lally on the stand testifying in the Miles King case with Rosemary. I'm going to mess up her last name, but you know who it is. What is it?
Scapiccio.
My girl. So she is, had him come up. He had a bunch of what, if anything, no answers. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know how many times he could have asked Proctor for the warrants specifically, and other items of discovery in that case. And he is scheduled back in court on the 5th. So that's going to be coming up. I think that's Tuesday, right? Yeah. So tomorrow's going to be the 4th. So the 5th will be Tuesday. And it's alleged that Michael Proctor may take the stand as well as that lead investigator in that case. Now, that's going to be must watch hearings, because no matter what this case is about, no matter if Miles is guilty, innocent, it means there's zero fucks to be given, in my opinion, because it is that the policy and procedure and gold standard of how things are supposed to work in our system have not been followed by the Norfolk District Attorney's Office and or Mass State Police that work for that office. And it is being shown in now multiple cases. So I am very interested in your take of what else do you think could potentially come out, or what would you think Proctor's testimony would look like, or what should we expect maybe, Mr. Bederow, on Tuesday?
So the first thing is this. Proctor, I understand, is the more sexy watch, because he's already, well, not that way. He's disgraced. Most people think he's corrupt. He's just an embarrassment. He is just the albatross around the whole DA's office neck. But Adam Lally is the one to watch, and is far and away much more important, for a very simple reason. Not because he's interesting. He's anything but interesting. He's the exact opposite.
Paint Ryan. Yeah.
But what he is the prosecutor. And he is the one who has professional and ethical obligations to disclose evidence, not Michael Proctor. Michael Proctor is just, a disgraced former police officer who is supposed to comply with what a prosecutor has him do and provide that evidence. So then Lally or whoever presents it to the defense. But the one that's in the soup here, the one that's in the crosshairs, is Lally. And whatever happens on Tuesday, you've already seen enough. Lally should be fired immediately. And if he's not fired, he should resign. And the people running for DA should already have spoken out on this and said, I would terminate him or ask for his resignation on day one. There is nothing else that Lally can say that he hasn't already said that would ever change that's what should happen to him. Okay. He was a prosecutor of a murder defendant who was incarcerated for almost 4 years, and who, for the course of 4 years, had in his actual possession, custody, and control 6 search warrants, and inexplicably never disclosed it to the defense. And his word salad, his sighing, his conscious avoidance, his indifference, everything aside, when you cut through the bullshit and you just cut through the, the sighing and the, I don't want to be here, and look at the cold hard record, what the cold hard record is, he knew there were 6 search warrants right around the time of arrest. He mentioned them in the grand jury. Okay. In other words, they were in his possession, custody, and control. And he didn't disclose them to the defense. And he says, well, I asked Proctor and I didn't get them. Well, you should already have them. And if he's not giving them to you, you should ask him again. And when he says, I'm not giving it to you, you should ask him again and again, and so on and so on. And you should be a little firmer. You should be a little tougher. Not, trust me, bro, I'll get it to you when I get it to you. And when he testified, well, I got a half-a-davit instead of an affidavit, that should have raised red flags to say, what are you doing? Where's the rest?
Yeah.
Notify the defense. He didn't do any of that. He just said, what's for lunch? I don't care. This guy's rotting in jail. In my mind, he's probably guilty. I don't care. And you saw that in his testimony. And, he's going to get crushed even more on Tuesday, because when you give a real lawyer a second crack at him, armed with a transcript, and really dig down and fill in all the holes, he's just, if you do this for a living, and I did that for a living, and it is a great profession, like in your opening, it is the best job for a lawyer. And let's also be clear, this is a guy who's been doing this for 20 years. Okay?
Yes.
He's the top guy or close to it. Now, it turns out it's like top banana in a rotten bunch. But the reality is, you've been doing this for 20 years and you're getting the heavy cases. You're getting the murder cases where it's alleged that some tough guy just blasted some other guy right on the street in Milton, of all places, which is a, pretty nice town.
Yeah.
Certainly. You were assigned Karen's case, which is the biggest case they'll ever see, twice. So you're obviously a serious player in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And your attitude is, I'll just ask Proctor every now and then, and I'll just give him what I got. And then when he's questioned about what kind of process you have, what kind of due diligence you do, what kind of mechanism do you have in place to make sure that you do these basic things, search warrants in a murder case, and provide them to the defense. And his answer is, I don't do anything. Okay. And then you go back and you say, you look at this guy, King, who may very well be guilty. Doesn't seem like a weak case. Guy's in jail. He's got a right to a speedy trial. He's not getting it. He's got a real lawyer, obviously, who's not going to, she's going to dig down on this and expose all of it. And his attitude even now is, I don't know. I have no intellectual curiosity. I have no interest in finding out. He's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment to the profession. He's an embarrassment to himself. He's an embarrassment to Morrissey. He's an embarrassment to the voters and the residents in that county. It's an embarrassment to everyone. And he may very well have jeopardized an actually guilty murderer getting away with it, because if there's anything of value in those warrants and the defense can establish prejudice, or alternatively, they can show it was intentional, then guess what? This guy's going to get off on the ultimate technicality, because the taxpayers have this guy running the store, and he'd rather be doing anything but running the store. And then you go back and you say, isn't it a shame that in Karen's case, they didn't get that hearing, that pretrial hearing over the Sallyport video?
Yes.
Video that Adam Lally certified he disclosed all evidence when he didn't, just like he did in this King case. Okay. And then he gave some video before trial, some video during trial, and a lot of video after trial, right?
Yeah.
And video that he did turn over during the trial, turns out it was inverted. And if you go back and you watch that testimony with him and Buchanan, you better believe Lally's every bit as complicit in that fiasco as Buchanan. That's no accident. You don't call a witness to talk about video without prepping him and knowing what the evidence is, okay? And this is the same guy you saw with Barrows, right? You saw Barrows's famous interview. He basically was telling them, you know, I'm going to blink twice. You don't want to hear what I'm going to have to say. And you heard Alan's interview with Aiden.
Yes.
We predicted this beforehand. He knew what was going on. And the defense at the first trial never asked Barrows about the taillight condition. And the reason is because they didn't know. And they didn't know because, once again, Lally didn't disclose what he was obligated to disclose. That was exculpatory evidence. Okay? He knew Barrows was going to say the taillight did not match the condition that these guys in the state police were going to say. So there is a track record here. And if that hearing had been held in Karen's case, what do you think Scapicchio would do with that transcript come Tuesday? All right. But Cannone denied that hearing. That was really unfortunate. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and Lally's answer in Karen's case is the same nonsense he's giving in King's case. With Proctor and in Karen's case, it was, I had no idea that there was this video in Proctor's back pocket for 2 years. All right. He's kind of saying the same thing about the search warrants, a little different, but he says, I rely on Proctor to give me the evidence. And I just, if he does that, I give him what I have. That's not due diligence. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No training, clearly. And he kind of acknowledged that there is a cultural rot at office. There's no training. There's no mechanism. And this goes way beyond what you saw last week and what you saw Tuesday. When you see Lally testifying the way he did a couple of weeks ago, and presumably the way he's going to testify in a couple of days, the consequences of his testimony are potentially much bigger than this Miles King fellow, who may very well be some gang-banging killer. I have no idea. Frankly, don't really care. I don't obviously want, guilty killers walking on the street, but
right.
I don't know what happened here, and whatever it is will be. But there's probably going to be a federal civil rights lawsuit against a lot of people from Karen's camp at some point. Yeah. Okay. I don't know when, I don't know how they're doing it. It's probably coming. Okay. Normally in those lawsuits, it is so extraordinarily hard to sue the DA's office and the prosecutors in their official capacity. They get immunity. It's not absolute, but it's damn close. And we don't need to get into the weeds of that. But the system is set up to not allow prosecutors to be sued in these kinds of lawsuits. But there are exceptions, okay? And one of the exceptions to suing a DA's office in a 1983 action is called a Monell claim. And you can Google it, M-O-N-E, Monell versus the city of New York. And I've seen these cases. I've consulted in these cases. And it is an end around to suing the prosecutor's office under a theory of a lack of supervision, negligent supervision, lack of training in Brady and discovery, and establishing a pattern in that office. And when you look at Lally's testimony from a couple of weeks ago, he buried the DA on that. It's clear this is a senior guy who has no system, has no training, has no clue. I didn't exercise due diligence, but he's the senior guy. And I'm just relying on Proctor. And it's the exact same thing he said and the exact same dirty cop he relied on in Karen's case to not disclose evidence. The same dirty cop who may very well have planted evidence. Okay? Lally buried the Norfolk DA's office in a potential 1983 action based on what he said. And he probably had no idea he was doing it. Okay. And I don't think that, Scapicchio could care less. It's not her problem. She's vigorously and zealously and very well representing a client. Okay. And she's working on getting his case dismissed. But that testimony from a few weeks ago, she was like a fullback clearing the hole for the running back, with the football, the 1983 lawyers to run through and haul in the DA's office into that lawsuit. And that discovery about what training manuals do they have? Probably zero.
Right.
What kind of training do they have for any of these people? Probably zero. You're going to open the door to what kind of disciplinary history do they have as it relates to Brady violations? They're going to open the door. And Lally is going to have to testify and be deposed in a 1983 action. So is McLaughlin. So is Morrissey. So is the first DA. So is Brennan. So are all these people in the state police. It is going to be a complete fiasco. And when you see what you saw with Lally and you see what's almost certainly coming with him on Tuesday, it's only going to get 1,000 times worse, because when you get a transcript and you get to go back and you're a real lawyer and you can recharge the batteries and read a transcript and see what you missed the first time, because again, you're going in the flow and sometimes things don't come out right away. There's going to be a lot of follow-up on Tuesday of some gaping holes that this guy left. I mean, a perfect example is, well, I got these partial affidavits from Proctor. One thing you didn't hear testimony or questioning, I don't believe, unless I'm wrong, I didn't hear it. As a follow-up to that was, well, what do you mean by partial affidavit? How many pages did you get? Was it numbered? And pray tell, sir, what did you do about that? Did you, I don't know, call Proctor and say, where the hell are the rest? And why are you sending me two?
Yes.
Did you then, at a minimum, call the defense counsel at that point and say, listen, I don't know what's going on. I've got 2 pages. This is weird. I'm working on this. I don't know. Things like that. You know, when he says he met with Proctor, what steps did he take to go over his head? And did he call him down and say, what are you doing? I'm obligated to do this. Where is the rest? Why did you even have to go to Proctor? You knew about the search warrants. You didn't have to speak. In other words, are you so intellectually disinterested and not curious in your own case, your own murder case, that when Proctor drafted a search warrant, you didn't say, I don't know, can I see it? Can I maybe see what's in it? What did you find? You know, do you have the return on warrant? I need the warrant. This is automatic discovery. Did he do any of these things? Why did he go to court 1, 2, 3 years into the case? And again, just like he did in Karen's case, represent. I've turned over all discovery, or I think I have. The question for him is, why did you make that representation? Can you explain why that was in good faith? Did you check with Proctor about the warrants before you so cavalierly and recklessly made that representation? Okay, so you look at all this and you can understand why this guy shows up with a lawyer, an ethics lawyer, why he says, I don't want to testify under oath, why I don't want to go sit in the witness stand. But the way it works is tough cookies. You don't get any privileged treatment because you're some 20-year prosecutor. And that works against him, by the way. The more experienced you are, the heavier cases you handle, and the more you screw up, the worse it is. So he has no right to be in the position that he's in. Okay. And the next question becomes, when there's a 1983 action, after the DA's office learned about this. Now, obviously they should have known about this Miles King fiasco years ago. I mean, why getting out of jail? This guy's dangerous. He's getting out of jail because we don't disclose discovery. I mean, that's how stupid they are. That's how incompetent they are. It's how dirty they are. You know, use your own adjectives, whatever applies. The evidence will show it. Even after this hearing, is he still prosecuting homicide cases? Again, what is the DA's office doing to end this? To say, we can't have this. Are they pulling him off cases? They should.
Yeah.
Probably not. And then, you know, this is unrelated to this is more to the politics of this. What's profoundly surprising or shocking to me is there are there's, as far as I know, at least 3 candidates running for DA.
Yes.
And now, obviously, you know, anybody but Morrissey is probably a good strategy.
Correct.
In a general level. But a winning strategy goes beyond just saying anybody but Morrissey, pick me, and here's why. And so come out, candidates, be courageous. Come out and say, I don't know about this king's guilt or innocence, and I don't care. Same way, no candidate should ever comment during Karen Reed's trial. I don't know about her guilt or innocence, but come out and say this is troubling, like these allegations. But Lally has admitted knowing about the search warrants. He has admitted not disclosing them. He has admitted having no explanation for this. He has demonstrated his complete indifference. So we're done here. So politically, where are these candidates to come out and say, this can't continue? And on my first day in office, this guy is turning in his resignation or getting fired. And if he wants to file a lawsuit about his pension, go do it. You can't have this. There's a public trust that this DA's office doesn't have. And you've seen it in case after case after case. But when you saw Lally testify substantively in the way he did, and with his just complete conscious avoidance of the issues, his lack of intellectual curiosity, and his sheer incompetence, or worse, could be worse. Maybe it's intentional. And it is true and interesting, but less important, that his so-called defense to this, which is not really a defense, is to make Proctor once again the useful idiot, the same way they made him the useful idiot in Karen's case about the Sallyport video. He never told me. Now, Proctor, he's already disgraced. So he comes in and he's going to do one or two things. He's either going to say, yeah, Lally said the truth, and I'm just a corrupt, incompetent loser who just didn't turn it over because I yesed him to death. Now, by the way, that does not help Lally. Okay, Lally, you're cooked either way. But the more interesting question is if Proctor comes in and says, no, he had the search warrants the whole time. He knew about them. He didn't ask me. And if he had, I would have given them to him, which is now showing intentional misconduct. And now you're getting dangerously close to a dismissal of what appears to be a very strong murder indictment. And if that's, by the way, the fact that that's even a possibility ought to be enough for people to say, maybe it's time we throw all the bums out here and put some other people in who take this a little more seriously, a little more responsibly, and show a little more interest, a little more intellectual curiosity and dedication to their job than
and to justice. Yes.
People that have been prosecutors for 20 years, never had a job in the private sector. And when you combine Lally and Morrissey, you're talking about what, 60 years straight of just pure bureaucracy.
Yes.
No accountability, and taking taxpayer money and using it like a public trough. And just, honestly, there comes a point where people have to ask, why is all this crap happening in one moderately sized county in Massachusetts more than anywhere else? That ought to be shocking to people.
Yes. Yes, it absolutely should. And that was just incredible, Mr. Bederow. My head is spinning. I've written everything down. The Monell claim, is that correct?
Yep.
That I'm going to be looking into that. And I was wondering, so the connection that I have, or that I'm seeing the pattern, so it's not just the Miles King, which we knew, but the Walsh case. What are the thoughts on the filing that was the extension of 30 days for Proctor's records to be given to specific cases, it said, right? So that I know of it because of the Walsh case, but so they've given this extension, right, from the feds that's like that all of this needs to be turned over to these cases and those teams, right, that are dealing with those specific cases to see if there is anything, because I am feeling, or one would feel, that is there a pattern, or are we going to see that there were far more communications that were not just related to Karen and her case and Proctor talking to his 9 best friends from first grade? Will we find, or will there be evidence of other cases discussed in the way in which he flagrantly had disregard for the privacy, for families, for victims, for defendants, and giving his, just inside information to the public and to people that should have never had it. Do you think we'll find that for other cases?
I don't know, but when you're speculating, if you want to use
All speculation.
But some speculation can be informed more than other, like rampant speculation. And so, what are the context clues here? So the context clues are: we're talking about Michael Proctor. Guy's a scumbag. Okay,
all day.
We know what he did in Karen's case. We know he was looking for nudes. We know what he said. We know he's terminated for bias. We know that he went on national TV and said, "Oh, there's nothing I would do differently." I mean, how dumb can you be?
Gross.
But putting that all aside, did he do it in other cases? I don't know. But if you look at it in the sense, well, he was looking for nudes because he had access to Karen Reed's phone. Okay. And you say, okay, I get it. He's looking at a woman's phone. He's not looking for nudes of, Miles King. Okay. I think we can all agree he's not looking there for that kind of thing. So you say, okay, this disgusting individual, is looking through Karen's phones. He can say he's kidding and Buchanan and all that nonsense. He said it. Don't take my words for it. His words. He said no news. So you say, okay, so he's looking for naked images of a woman, an attractive woman whose phone he has. Okay. And you say, do you think he might do that again? I don't know. Well, now look at Anna Walsh.
Gorgeous.
Okay. Anna Walsh, obviously is deceased. We know that. There's going to be a lot of evidence on either phones, whatever they're looking at. They're going to look at her phone, obviously. Whether they have permission or not, and whether they lied about it or not, let's put that aside for a moment. They're looking at Brian Walsh's phones and devices. And, I don't know what the personal relationship between the Walshes was, or what they might share or not share, or what she was doing in her personal life. That's really none of our business. But the point is, do you think that he might be doing the same thing there? I would say that makes sense. I would call that informed speculation, not rampant speculation.
Yeah.
The thing that's interesting, and I didn't watch this hearing, but I read a summary of it. So all the numbers apply. And if I misinterpreted it, somebody can correct me. I'm not professing to know exactly. But my understanding, if I read it correctly a week or two ago, was that Laura McLaughlin, well known to the Karen Reed people, a well-known defender of the realm, about defending the crown and that office to every level imaginable. My understanding is that her position was there is exculpatory evidence on something that is under the federal protective order. And then, of course, they have the crutch, but I can't disclose it because I'm under a federal protective order. Now, that's true. But that's also very convenient.
Right.
Right. Don't blame me, but you don't get it anyway, unless the feds allow it. But to your point, if she's saying there is exculpatory evidence that we need to disclose that's covered by the federal protective order, that would lead me to believe it may very well be Proctor stuff that has nothing to do with Karen Reed, by the way.
Yes.
Now, the other thing is this. When they hide behind the federal protective order, it's almost not fair to say hide, because they can't disclose what a federal protective order precludes them from doing. And if all the evidence is supposed to literally light itself on fire within 30 days of the verdict, they say, don't blame us, blame. Now, you want to blame the DA. You say, why are you telling all the lawyers, us included, by the way, in our case, on the 29th day in the evening, the day before the hearing? That's ridiculous. Okay?
That's horrifying.
Putting all that aside, and that kind of sewer service, what lawyers call, aside, the reality is, the feds are going to have to deal with it. And what's going to happen is and this is another example of where else but Norfolk County, you're going to see it is going to be normal practice in every single case that involves Proctor and this cast of characters. Every single lawyer is going to be writing the federal government pursuant to TUI, asking for everything under the sun, and the incredible obligations and work that are going to be hoisted upon the U.S. Attorney's Office is insane. And that this is just another example of that. The fact that this is even a realistic possibility tells you that there is a crisis in how these people in the DA's office and the state police in the DA's office work. But it also needs to be differentiated from the following, which is, the DA's position is I can't disclose whatever is being held under a federal protective order. And that is true. When they say that, you can't literally blame them for that. They can't commit contempt, and be subject to federal discipline and prosecution because they're literally there are ways to deal with it. But the point is, that is a different issue from any electronic communications on the DA's own server, including the state police, or any police department, because that is in their possession, custody, and control, and has absolutely, positively nothing to do with a federal protective order. So to be clear, when you start talking about Proctor's communications and you start talking about Morrissey's and the DA's, you have to differentiate between a private device and their public one. Now, a lot of this stuff came off Proctor's public device. Private, excuse me. And, that's not necessarily within the prosecutor's possession, custody, or control. But you better believe anything on a government server that relates to anything and all of these types of cases, they damn well have to disclose that if it's relevant, discoverable, and or exculpatory. So there is a difference here.
Now, see, I don't understand that, Mr. Bederow, because why I say that is because of this. Like, so for the medical field, for physicians, for nursing, for HIPAA guidelines, it does not matter if I am on my employer issued cellular device or my personal device. If there is a breach or of any sort of private patient confidential information, I can be held accountable for that.
Yes.
So I believe that should that should extend to public servants.
You're right. And it gets complicated about when does it pass into their possession, custody, or control.
Got it.
What does the DA know? I mean, if you're relying on Proctor telling you, the guy has less credibility than the dirt on the bottom of your shoe. Okay? Right. But if you assume that they're acting in good faith, and he's mentioned to the DA that I have messages on my private phone and the DA has seen them, then guess what? Now it's in your possession, custody, or control. And certainly I would make the argument that, if Proctor is a sitting state trooper and you're working with him and that there's a good faith reason to believe this, that you should say, I need to look at your private phone.
Yeah.
And see what he does. I mean, so it is a little more complicated than that. But what I'm talking about is,
specifically,
they're using the federal protective order to say, hey, we don't know and we can't do this, and it's his private phone. That argument fails on its face if it relates to information on a state government server.
Noted. Okay. Totally get that. So the extension, though, for them given that extension of 30 days, was that due to the prosecution being able to give out to the teams the private or the public information, his cell phone or public? We don't know.
That's 30 days for them to figure out how to deal with the U.S. Attorney's Office about what are we going to do here and what's going to happen if we go back and say the feds say no. You're going to see lawyers riot. Okay, because what lawyers like myself are going to do is say, if you have information that ought to be disclosed, whether as discovery, and more importantly, if it's Brady material, it's Giglio material, it's favorable to the defense, I have constitutional right to a fair trial that trumps your federal
Yeah, fuck.
protecting
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you're going to have tension. And if you accept the fact, as I do, that the feds are going to want to do the right thing, whatever that is, they're going to have to find a balance here. And the other thing is,
Dan,
the
yeah.
feds are not going to want to get 30 TUI requests a month because every case in Norfolk County is presumptively dirty based upon the cast of characters that are prosecuting this.
Yes.
So it's just one giant mess, and it's illustrative of the larger problem in that office. None of this would even be a topic of discussion if these people weren't texting the way they were, doing the things that they were doing, and testifying in the way that they testified. But the system can't function if you don't assume that prosecutors and cops are honest and tell the truth, and most are. You should never assume that, oh, they're all lying. That's not true.
No.
But common sense and evidence tells you in that office, they're not entitled to that presumption. And I hate to say that, but I'm also being honest. I don't assume they're telling the truth. Why would I?
Yeah. You've not shown me the history has not shown me that. And although we would like to have faith and all the, respect for our good law enforcement and the DA's offices, when you have shown me too many times what you are capable of,
but
I
there's
can't
real
keep
evidence.
trusting.
I mean,
Yeah.
Circle back to Lally. We know as a matter of fact that he filed a certificate of compliance certifying that I have disclosed all discoverable evidence pre-trial to Karen Reed after exercising due diligence to find all that evidence. That's not true. That's a fact.
Yeah.
He didn't disclose all kinds of video, at least. And some of that video, in fact, was inverted. And I would suggest he had to have known that. He didn't disclose the evidence about, the Dighton police officer, Barrows, as we talked about. Now go back to Miles King. It came out in the first day of testimony at the hearing. He made a representation to the court. I have disclosed all evidence of which I am aware that I am obligated to disclose. That's not true. We know that's not true. There are 6 search warrants that he claims he only learned about a couple of weeks ago, and that's ridiculous, or months ago. That's probably false testimony. It's just absurd on its face. But whether it's on purpose or not, why would you give this guy, who is their senior guy, they gave him awards. You've heard me say this before. They gave him an award for Prosecutor of the Year that's named after my cousin, if you'd believe that, years ago. But that's neither here nor there. He's 20 years in the office. He's doing homicides. He's doing the best serious cases. He did Karen Reed twice. Nobody's done it. No prosecutor has done a murder case like that twice. He's doing this King case. He's involved in all this stuff, and he can't be relied upon. And his defense is, well, I relied on Michael Proctor, who just turns out to be corrupt and disgraced.
Yes.
So, again, why would you trust anything that these people tell you without seeing actual evidence first? They're not entitled to the benefit of the doubt. And when that's how lawyers feel, and that's how the public feels, then the prosecutor's office can't function properly. They've lost the confidence. They've lost the public trust. They've lost the benefit of the doubt from defense attorneys. It's only a matter of time before they lose the benefit of the doubt from certain judges. And I think it's pretty clear in this King case. The only issue is for this judge, there are only 2 questions he's left with at this point. Okay. Is this intentional? And or is the evidence that the defense didn't get, is it material, and have they been prejudiced? And if the answer to either one of those questions is yes, then Miles King he's walking. It's going to get dismissed on the utmost technicality, right? Because the DA's office, and I'm including the state police, are incompetent or worse. And when you talk about intentional misconduct, the judge doesn't even have to find that it's Lally. It can be Proctor. It's the government. Okay. And you're in a situation where at the end of this evidentiary hearing, the judge has a very difficult job to do. When you have an evidentiary hearing, the first thing you have to do, because it's a fact finding, it's an evidentiary hearing, you have to find the facts as you believe them to credibly be, right?
Yeah.
And when you do that, the first thing you have to do is declare whether you find each witness credible or not credible.
Yes.
And it ain't common for a judge to say, I don't find the prosecutor credible. By the way, that is the death penalty to his career. If Judge Krupp says in open court, I don't find Lally testified credibly. Now, if he does find out or conclude that he testified credibly, that's not good for Lally either, because he's still going to say, I find this disgraceful, and his conduct a level of incompetence. But you may be in a situation where the judge is going to say, I don't find Lally credible. I don't find Proctor credible. I don't find anybody who's testified for the prosecution on these issues credible. Therefore, I'm concluding that the only credible evidence is that they either intentionally or to a degree of negligence that is so off the charts that it's almost the same thing as being intentional. They're so grossly negligent and reckless that the prejudice is presumed, which it can be if it's that bad. And therefore, the only appropriate remedy would be dismissal of the indictment. And you talk about technicalities, that is the ultimate technicality. That has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. That has to do with prosecutorial competence or lack of integrity or lack thereof.
Yeah.
A sheer lack of, we don't care. And if you take anything away from the testimony you saw last week, maybe he'll be a little different on Tuesday. I don't know. The attitude he gave was, I don't give a shit. Like,
yeah.
I didn't care then. I don't care now.
Don't care now. Yeah.
I didn't review much of the documents because I don't care. Most prosecutors, if they even thought for a second that, oh my God, I might have screwed up by accident, would have enough integrity and intellectual curiosity to go back and say, I need to find out what happened here and explain, even if I'm going to get yelled at. But I need to professionally tell the court and defense, this is what happened. And if it's necessary to fall on the sword, I should have done this. I didn't. I feel terrible. No, what Lally was thinking of, am I having 2 or 3 eggs for breakfast and what's for lunch? He didn't look at the emails. He didn't look at the documents because he doesn't care. He didn't do anything with his bosses. He didn't do anything with the state police because he doesn't care. His definition of due diligence is simply to say to Proctor, did you give me the evidence? I'll get it to you when I can. And then he just forgets about it because, I'm doing the Karen Reed case now and Miles King doesn't really matter because, what's the difference? He's guilty and in jail. I'll get to it when I get to it. These people are not good at their jobs. They're not professional. They don't take their ethical and professional responsibilities seriously. And people are seeing it. Cases are going to get dismissed and jeopardized. And the only thing that's missing here are these candidates for DA to say something about it.
Yeah. Come out, speak out about it and say to your constituents who are going to be the voters coming up. I mean, this is coming on the heels. 2026 is around the corner. We are already in August 5.
Far too passive. They have no money, which is at this point makes no sense because you got to pound the pavement. And frankly, they should be lining up and calling people like you and other people similarly situated and begging to get on and speak more and speak publicly and speak loudly and speak authoritatively. Don't just say I'm not Morrissey, but here's what I'll do differently. I will call this out. I would not allow this. I will implement systems. I will fire anyone who exhibits this level of indifference or just doesn't care or that level of competence or lack thereof. And, given a soundbite once every 3-4 weeks doesn't really do it.
No, it doesn't. And I actually would say then in that spirit, Mr. Bederow, I invite any of the opponents of Mr. Attorney DA Morrissey's office, if you are running against him, if you want to come on a platform, call me, email me, and come on over. Do something. If you are going to be different, come on over. I will put on a pot of tea and we will talk the shit, because you need to say what is going to be different about you, or are you another cog in the wheel?
You and others are going to get
Everyone else.
20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever thousand people watching, talking about it, seeing who these people are. By default, it's going to lead to generating donations for if people like what they hear. I mean, if they're a bad candidate, then maybe it's a bad thing. But whatever.
Don't come on. Yeah.
I don't really know anything about them. But the point is, it's such common sense, especially in the modern way of the internet and YouTube. And, they're not well-known figures. They have no name recognition at all.
Exactly.
There's 3 of them or more. I don't even know. So why not differentiate yourself, put a face and a voice to it, explain why you're the right one, and just go out there and get attention. And if I'm too critical, I'm too critical, but they just seem so passive in all of this. And they're fighting a machine. Now, I don't think this machine is ultimately even going to run. That's my own view. I think there's just too much scandal, too much controversy, but you can't assume that. And
I think he's just brazen enough to do it. Mr. Bederow, I'm telling you right now, that man, I have a feeling that if left to his own devices and not forced to, not forced for another reason to not be there, that he would abso-friggin-lutely go for it again in 26.
Well, you're probably right. And, all the controversy aside, he does have 2 big advantages. Name recognition, because he's been boss hog for life in that county.
Mm-hmm.
He's barely been running the county, or at least the DA's office, for 20 something years. And 2, money. He's got a chest.
Yes.
And the people running against him have 3 disadvantages. They have no money, at least thus far that I'm aware of.
Right.
They have no name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Third disadvantage they have is that there's 3 of them, and it tends to split if it fragments unless one of them becomes the clear alternative, right? I mean, if it's a one-on-one race against someone like Morrissey, that's a huge advantage for the person that's running against him. But if you have 3 people and that fragments the so-called anti-Morrissey vote, that's not good.
Yeah, that's true.
Differentiate yourself.
I love that. I love that. And go on, whoever. Sorry, I wasn't saying just to obviously clearly who am I, but too, I think that is such a smart and an effective route, especially with us in the Commonwealth and the Northeast. And I think everywhere at this point, you are trusting, your news sources from different platforms. You are not seeing a lot on the mainstream media, just for example, saying for local things specifically, like you want to hear from Dejuna Perkins, who I know has gone on with Mike Crawford multiple times. Lovely, seems nice and great. But for the other candidates, if you want an opportunity, here's an opportunity. And to come on and say exactly what you mean and why you are different. And if you are a person who is trying to rebuild and wants to be that actual real change in Norfolk County, come on over. Hi, babe. You're welcome.
I mean, yeah, and raise the real points.
Yes.
And the questions. And it's interesting because you are starting to see, even in the mainstream media, some degree of criticism that you would never see. I mean, so I read the Boston Globe Sports, okay?
Yes.
Except Ben Volen. I will not read him. He's the worst. No, he's like the Patriots guy. He's just like a wet piece of paper. He's just Mr. Negative and boring. But and so I read the sports and I get it for that reason. But given everything that's been going on in the last couple of years, and given that I'm from there, so I peek at the Metro section because
Of course.
and I read probably 5% of the Metro stories because I'm not interested. But there was an article the other day in the Boston Globe, and it was kind of a deep dive on the state police DA's office murder clearance rates from county to county.
Yes.
The threshold of the story is, folks, Norfolk is far and away the worst.
Yeah.
Now, it wasn't literally a Morrissey hit piece, but it's the kind of thing that it just feels like you wouldn't see previously, where the Boston Globe would go out of their way to say that Norfolk is, of all the counties in Massachusetts, has
Can you imagine
the worst clearance rate. And their defense was, yeah, but it's higher than like some other parts of the country, which is like, whatever, that's not what people are talking about.
Apples and oranges versus the same state and the same Mass State Police and like, come on, stop it. You can't say to like another town or another city that the specific one that they did has way higher homicide rate than what would be considered it, or what is actually the average in Massachusetts, and even less in Norfolk County. So fuck off with that. You know what I mean?
Also,
what I'm going to say.
It's interesting too, because they definitely, in a proverbial sense, cook their own books when they talk about a clearance rate. Okay. I mean, I guarantee you the Norfolk stats consider the homicide of John O'Keefe cleared. Now, no one with half a brain in the real world would say, oh yeah, they cracked that case. And the way cops and detectives, when they talk about clearing a homicide, it means we know who did it and something happened. We made an arrest. Well, they did make an arrest in this case, not a good one, obviously, but so they may very well have the lowest numbers, even with their version of, well, we're clearing this, we're clearing that, and we don't count Sandra Birchmore because in our view that was a suicide, so there's nothing to not clear. I mean, so it's actually worse than even the article would portray.
Do you know he doubled down, Morrissey, saying that, speaking of, sorry, Matthew Farwell was supposed to have a hearing next week as well. That has been moved to Halloween, October 31st. I will be watching it. I know my friend Dave Cullinane will too. And that's upsetting to me on so many different levels. But DA Morrissey has yet to acknowledge that two other medical examiners, including a famed Dr. Baden and the FBI's a medical examiner as well, determined that it was a homicide, right? The injury sustained by Sandra Birchmore, unfortunately, God rest her soul. And Morrissey is saying he still considers it a suicide because that was what was determined by the Mass OCME.
And
unfucking believable, Mr. Bederow.
I still maintain that last January 1st, Arizona State beat Texas in the college football playoff. But you know what? Nobody really cares because that's not the way it was recorded in history. Look, he's obviously, that's a political conclusion because it's politically scandalous. He doesn't want the attention going on the federal case with Farwell, and I assume it's probably nerve-wracking. I mean, the fact that Farwell has not, for example, appeared in court since his arraignment a year ago, that's not how it works in federal court. The Federal Speedy Trial Act is a real thing. You can't just cavalierly waive it again and again. Judge has to sign off on it. They don't like to do that, and things move along. And there's really only a few possibilities. Could they be petitioning the Attorney General in DC to say why you shouldn't go for the death penalty? Maybe, but the reality is they're not going to seek the death penalty. The District of Massachusetts, they're not. That's like, I mean, I know it's a different Justice Department than it was, but this is not going to be a federal death penalty case. The other reason why a court would sign off and delay is probably, you know, the reason that everybody is wondering, is he talking or trying to talk? At least is he trying to better his own situation? And the answer is, I mean, I don't know, obviously, but not appearing in court for any type of reason in a federal murder or federal murder of a witness case, which, by the way, that charge tells you how desperate they were to find jurisdiction. I mean, that's
exactly.
They had to go deep into the federal code to come up with that just to justify dragging him into court. But he may very well be attempting to cooperate on any number of things. It could be complicity as it relates to Sandra. It could be other types of corruption. It could be not happening at all. I don't know. But I mean, I think if you ask most lawyers who have experience in this, why this guy has had his case kicked down the road for a year in a federal murder case without an appearance and just constantly waiving Speedy Trial Act while he's incarcerated. And the answer most likely would be sucking up to the government and trying. There's no guarantee that they want him or that he has anything, but they would at least listen to him. And if he's, the only other thing I can think of is that he's trying to make some kind of death penalty, take it off the table pitch, but that it doesn't seem like a realistic situation anyway. So, you know, who knows? So I understand why someone like Morrissey would say, well, there's nothing to see here. It was really an unfortunate suicide.
My God, like that just made my stomach turn hearing him. Also, there was the Vanity Fair article. I haven't talked to you since that. It came out regarding the post-trial in the Karen Reed case. And it was interesting because Rachel Rollins, a former attorney, oh God, wait, what? No, she was not an attorney general. What the frick was? She was the
Suffolk County DA, and then Biden tapped her to be U.S. attorney.
U.S. attorney office. Yes, she was. Yes. So she was Levy before Josh Levy got in, right? So she was, as much as I dislike her and I dislike the things that went on, she did make some good points. And she said that this is a stain, right, on what she believed was the Norfolk DA's office. And in substance, she didn't say a stain, actually. She was just like, for the public and for our perception, this was 100% damage that will take years to fix.
So Rachel Rollins is a horrible lawyer, a horrible U.S. attorney, a horrible DA, and probably a horrible person. And I really like Vanity Fair and the coverage of all of this. That was a mistake to use her as an attributable source. There is literally nothing that Rachel Rollins could say about legal analysis, especially as it relates to reading into the ethics and attacking another ethics. That was a mistake. And she may very well have been right, and I may very well agree, but when I see Rachel Rollins, I stop reading. She has zero credibility. And so I can't endorse or even say it's not normal for what's happening about, you know, the way Morrissey is describing the Fed's case as it relates to Birchmore. She may very well be accurate, but anything Rachel Rollins says in the form of legal analysis and how a prosecutor should act is the epitome of chutzpah. And to say, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
My God, are you the last person
that should have a comment? Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
You are in essence thrown out of office,
literally,
for being corrupt or close to it. And you have been accused of doing all kinds of bad things while you were in office. And I can even remember years ago, I think she was still Suffolk County DA. She came to New York to a CLE at NYU Law School in the Village. And they were talking about like progressive prosecutors and how they do things. And they put her on the panel with the Brooklyn DA, and I think they brought in a very progressive prosecutor from Seattle, King County, and then they had Rachel Rollins there, and all I can remember thinking is like, what are you doing? I mean, why am I paying money to get continuing legal education from this person? And
You get the ick.
yeah, no, she's just not a serious lawyer and not a serious analyst.
And with that being said, I have a question about if possible, Mr. Bederow, could we address at all Cosgrove and the response to Unimpound Town? Because I'm trying to get us there. I believe that it should be, right? I feel as though he is really showing his age and not so much his wisdom at this point. It feels as though he's citing things and he is twisting and using family members of witnesses and requesting that everyone is blanketed because no one should look like an asshole on the World Wide Web. And God forbid someone makes you look like one.
So let me just say generally, without getting into court proceedings are presumptively open to the public. I mean, that
Correct.
is, you have seen in many situations when courts try to close the courtroom or try to seal documents, whatever, you will many times see news organizations intervene and make a First Amendment public right to access and win.
Yeah.
Now there are times, they might close a courtroom if a witness who's been threatened to be murdered and the defendant is charged with 37 gang murders, that they may kick out his buddies from the courtroom and that kind of thing. There are times where you may see, if an undercover police officer is testifying and their identity is unknown, that the court will close the courtroom and the proceedings and seal the records for that sort of thing. But the problem in Norfolk County is this: they've turned it on its head as it relates to cases that tend to embarrass them, which obviously Aiden's cases do. And they have taken what ought to be a presumption of openness and made it a presumption of darkness. Okay. So you have seen, and we don't need to get into semantics about whether the word is impoundment or protective order. And I'm not getting into the motion.
Oh, no, of course.
My point is, the reality is many things in a case that is very high profile. Those cases are, there is a huge public interest, obviously, in these cases. It's kind of a companion case to what was the biggest case probably in Massachusetts in 50 years, right? Or longer, whatever. It is a First Amendment journalist case. It does involve allegations of corruption. It does involve at least one state trooper who was terminated, right? Who's involved.
Yep.
And it also involves a lot of witnesses who themselves speak publicly or have advocates on their behalf speak publicly. So you can't have a situation where all of those factors are in play and say, well, we're not going to show you evidence unless you agree that it be kept quiet. And it can't be that evidence gets kept quiet because it's embarrassing to the government or even others. There has to be a safety concern or something like that. So again, speaking generally, not specifically, the fact that a certain criminal defendant is a journalist, is outspoken, does talk about things publicly, sometimes satirically, comically, sometimes some people would say offensively. Many people might say that. That's okay. That's not a reason to keep evidence from the public's right. And the problem when you see motions like this is they're missing the point. Okay. The issue isn't a criminal defendant's right for this evidence to be public, right? The issue, the public's right to open court proceedings, which includes what happens in court the open court file. The victim here is you, the public. You want to know what's going on. You have a right to know. The way you usually hear this framed is like, well, this guy doesn't deserve it. It's got nothing to do with him. Now, it may be unfortunate. Well, he's going to use it. That's not how the First Amendment works. And that's not a reason to conceal information from the public. Okay. And now, if it crosses a line of, true threats, threats to harm someone, safety issues, things like that, that's perhaps a different conversation. But the fact that I don't want this because he's going to scream and yell, or whoever is going to scream and yell and embarrass us, because there are, potentially embarrassing communications from any number of people, including people, again, who have gone public and denied doing anything wrong. This was all said in court. I said this at the last.
Exactly.
That's not a reason to keep it quiet. And by quiet, I mean shielded from public view, denying public access in violation of the First Amendment. That's not how court works in the United States. That may be how it used to work in, Stalin's Soviet Union and other places in years past, but we're not in those kind of dystopian times. This is 2025 in the United States, and the issue is the public's right to know. And there is a First Amendment right for the public to know. We already know, okay? Like, it's not being hidden from us.
Yep.
It's hidden from you.
Yes. Yes. And that is scary. And that's where I always say to all of our loveys and everybody who, even if you don't appreciate what I have to say, what Aiden has to say, anything, you still have to, or should want to, respect our right to say it. Okay.
Well,
and you insert, what I'm just, where I'm going for here is that if we don't stand, and if we don't understand that the right for us to be able to see as the public what is going on in transparency in cases of this magnitude and in this Commonwealth, you're cruising for a bruising, and we are going to put ourselves back into a place where there will be ramifications felt for generations if things go bad in this case, Mr. Bederow, in these cases rather, that I feel as though it is sending us back to a place of us not having a free press, us not having a right to know what is going on in our government. We, the people of this Commonwealth, must stand firm and rise up for what we believe in yet again. We did it in Karen's case, and now we have to do it, and we have to stand up for Aiden, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, I mean, in any situation, you have seen many cases. I've been involved in these cases where media organizations or media entities or personalities, whatever, do intervene and say, like, we want to be heard on a denial of public access. That hasn't happened as far as I'm aware in our cases, but whether that happens or not, the reality is you can't have a presumption of you only get evidence if you agree or the court agrees to keep it under seal or impoundment or protective order. There's so many freaking different words that people use. The point remains the same. Unavailable for public inspection. Okay. 99.99% of the time, the public has a right to waltz into a courtroom, sit and watch, and inspect the public file. That's how it works. In these cases, and I would say to a disproportionate percentage in Norfolk County, that ain't how it seems to work.
Yes. And it's just troubling. It's troublesome in a lot of ways, and we know that, but there is a bigger picture here. And I hope that, and I know out of all of us, and all of us are so thankful that there is the fight, and the fight will continue of that transparency, and to be able to have access to what is right. It's not like you're asking for, like you're saying, if there was someone who had heinous crimes or crimes against children or what the fuck ever, that is egregious, that you were unable to be seeing the specific information. But in this, it is such an abuse of power, or it's an abuse of whatever that the prosecution is thinking, that they are overreaching in a way that it seems, or I hope, would be shot down and allowed for the public to view.
I mean, again, and this is not a secret, so it's not inappropriate to discuss generally.
Yep.
The majority of stuff that is shielded, if you will, are voluntary communications made between and among law enforcement and certain individuals with law enforcement. I mean, this is not stuff that is irrelevant, that has nothing to do with anything. It's related. It's material, and it could be embarrassing to certain people, not in the way, oh my God, somebody sent naked picture, nothing like that. No. It could be just embarrassing because you don't want people seeing your private, well, not private, okay? There is no expectation of privacy when you communicate public official to public official with the things that we're talking about, or private people. It's just not the way it works unless there is a demonstrated basis to keep it from public view, or under a protective order, which is, again, it's a roundabout. The protective order doesn't keep it from the parties, obviously, but it prevents the parties from discussing publicly, which is tantamount to it's under impoundment. I mean, you're splitting hairs here. If something is under a protective order, you can't go into the courtroom tomorrow and say, can I see this court file and see this evidence that we're talking about? So tomato, you can't have it.
And we'll see where that goes from there. I'm going to go through Mr. Bederow together, if you don't mind. I just see what anybody wanted to say, because people love you and they wanted to say hello to you.
I'm getting ready to leave, and I'm here. I'm just, as I said, I'm gonna go watch Breaking Bad when we're done with the boy. So
I love that. I'm gonna, I might start it and see if one of my teens would watch Breaking Bad with me after this, and we could, like, compare notes. But I know you're a couple seasons ahead now. But Mrs. Parks in the house comes through with, are you joking me, Parksy? I am going off camera. You can talk to little Nurse Kim. Happy 1-year anniversary to Nurse Kim and attorney Mark Bederow. Love you both. And love all of your collabs. Kim, you are now our non-consensual intern for Mark Bederow too? ? No, I am not. I am just a Kim, and he allows me to bother him sometimes, and he comes on my show. Thank you both for all of the love and the light you bring to this crap happening in mass right now. Thank you so much, Parksy. I will text you later. And to Christine Fortunano, has been a member at Nurse Kim's house for 6 months. God bless you, Christine. I apologize for the wild behavior. Sloth Life has become a YouTube member consensually. Thank you, Lovey. I appreciate you. And Oyster, I hardly know her, says, what's the deal on the Melanie Nan feud? If Nan wasn't implying that Melanie was trolling her, should she clear it up? Did Melanie stop showing up?
I'm not this stuff is, I can't with this. Melanie is a good friend of mine.
Mine too.
Good person. I just can't with this. I think all of this should stop.
Okay. Yeah. Oyster, I hardly know her. I don't want anyone trolling anyone. And should she, wait a minute, read again, Kim. If Nan wasn't implying that Melanie was trolling her, should she clear it up? Did Melanie? Yes, I would. I would clear it up if I wasn't saying that, I would clear it up if it were me. And did Melanie stop showing up? No, clearly not. She's here every day and we love her for that. So thank you, Oyster. I hardly know her. And pro gamer, hello from the Adirondacks, the best upstate. Oh, love it. And Armor of Alessi comes in. Thank you so much, Lovey. Says the best advice I ever got for parenting teens. Where it's us, Mr. Bederow. We're teen parents and not teen moms.
No,
not 16 and pregnant.
I'm not 16. I'm not pregnant, and I'm not a mom.
Sorry. Okay, best advice I ever got for parenting teens. I know that their brains are pruning, and for some reason, it means that they have the same emotional control they had at 3 years old. Expectations met. That feels, I did call my girls the three-nagers, okay, because it was a wild ride. Kathy O'Grady, hi, Lovey. Hi, Lovey. I hope you healed after the Nair incident. Kathy, Kathy, I had a Nair incident, and I can talk to the girls about that at another time. Thank you. Oh, oh gosh, help us. Sloth Life again from Scotland, and I love you both together, and we love you, Sloth Life. And then the music to my soul says, considering their lacking chain of custody for so many items, do you think that the Commonwealth could have lost Karen's phone?
No.
Oh, we said that. Oh, Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Just kidding. You were first. Kelly Murphy, thank you, Lovey. I'm too old for this. Is not too old to be a member at Nurse Kim's house. I love your dog and I love you. Thank you for being here, Lovey. And then Armor of Leslie says, August 3rd, my birthday, Nurse Kim has 30,000 subscribers. A connection? Probably. Well, Armor of Alessi, thank you. Happy birthday, Lovey. And 30,000 officially. We're gonna have to say it's Mr. Bederow. It's Mr. Bederow's magic. He makes it happen. I just show up.
I just go with
some pearls.
I just go where they send me.
Just go with it. They send you here. It's a poor choice.
I work at the pleasure of management. I go where they tell me to go.
Gosh, Mr. Bederow, I'm sorry. Thank you, Scooter, for being a member for 8 months. You're an angel. James says, hi, Lovey. I love a spicy Bederow. Who doesn't? I'd like an F-bomb before I left, but you know.
It was even spicy. I mean, if you're talking about the Lally stuff, I don't know any lawyer who would say different. I mean, what you saw with him and what I assume you're going to see in a couple days is just offensive to anyone who's a lawyer with a sense of honor, integrity, and doing the right thing. And maybe it comes off as spicy. I just think
passion. I love passion when you get rocking and rolling. Oh God, nothing better. No,
he's a black eye for all good prosecutors. Like, and you know, you look at the people in that office, they're good lawyers. I mean, again, it's no different than cops. You can't say, oh, someone's a DA in Norfolk County, so they're corrupt. That's not fair.
No,
but they do get stained by the bad apples. And you know, they go to court and jurors or people are going to look at them and say, oh, you're with them. You must be. So it's harmful to the good people in the state police, the good people in the DA's office. It's a disaster across the board. It drags the whole place down.
You remember that saying, like my Nana used to say it to me, my Nana Phyllis, she'd say, if you hang around a barber shop long enough, you're going to get your hair cut. Right? Now, I wasn't hanging around at any barber shop, but you know what I'm saying. She was saying that, like, and I think for that you and I have discussed this too, Mr. Bederow, is that I'm sure there were young Mass State Police that came into that troop, that you had all of these high hopes of what you thought was going to happen. And then you quickly realized, and this is my opinion, that either you were going to fall in line or you were going to get the frig out, because their culture was so embedded that they weeded out, I'm sure, whom wasn't going to follow what they were doing and to the T of of how they were doing it and that they were allowed to, in my opinion.
Well, that's the problem. And again, you look at someone like Morrissey, he's boss hog DA for life, essentially. He'd never had a competitive race.
Nope.
So you get comfortable. And when you get comfortable, you get arrogant. And when you get comfortably arrogant, that's what can lead to corruption, right? You get lazy and you work with all your friends and you kind of start doing that. And you look at someone like Lally, he's never had a job in the private sector. He's never represented a client, okay? His client is, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which is fine, but he's not accountable to them. If this guy worked in the private sector and had to make a living and had a mortgage to pay without a steady paycheck, where you have to eat what you kill, so to speak, like lawyers in private practice, you think he would get away with, not finding things and just trusting Proctor and I'll get to it when I get to it? If you're in the real world, in the private sector, you'd be fired in 5 minutes. But the problem is, they get fat and lazy in that culture. There is a cultural rot in that office.
Agreed.
I don't mean literally fat. I mean proverbially fat. But there's
we have eyes, Mr. Bederow. There is like a, you're getting high on the hog and they're eating the hog. Okay.
There is a culture of apathy and just complete indifference to a defendant's rights to discovery and their constitutional right to evidence and a fair trial. And there's no defense to this. You saw what Lally said. He has no explanation for any of this. So yes,
none.
Morrissey has owned the barbershop for what feels like 40 years, and Lally's had chair number 1 for 20 years. And that's just the way it is.
Agreed. And Meatball Morrissey Sketty saying said, a very smart, beautiful woman of STEM once said, eat shit and bark at the moon. I did say that. And I learned it from my grandmother as well. Just kidding. Kelly, Chloe Bit, so we acquit. Thank you so much. Levy says, congratulations on 30K. You're the smartest and the prettiest. I can't. I don't. There ain't no Sunday like a Nurse Kim and Bederow Sunday. Love to you both. Thank you so much, Kelly. And you're an angel. I appreciate you. And to the Goodmans for gifting 5 Nurse Kim memberships. I love your faces so much. Listen, Mr. Bederow, I wanted to ask you one other question. Is that you were saying about Lally being responsible, right? At the end of the day, he is where the rubber meets the road. Proctor is a piece of shit. And well, didn't say that, but like, he might be a speckle of shit, but the whole entire shit log is Adam Lally, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with him as the DA's office, correct?
Yes, the obligation to disclose evidence does not rest with Michael Proctor. It rests with Lally. Now, they're supposed to work together and, but ultimately the prosecutor is the one flying the plane, right? He's got, if he's not getting what he needs from Proctor, then he has an obligation to say, give it to me. And if he doesn't get, he has an obligation to raise hell and get it done. And this is what I talked about earlier about the way corruption can often work in a DA's office, the way that they're set up. Their whole business model is flawed, okay? Having the state police live in the office like they're all working in one large fraternity house.
Oh, yes.
Faster, because they're all buddies. They all donate money to Morrissey, so he knows who's loyal and who's not. They all hang out. You've seen the way they text message each other. You've seen the way they behave. You've seen the pictures on social media, the way they all go out and have a couple beers. Not that anyone faults them for that. But the point is this: when you're working with your friends on that level, and then you're someone like Adam Lally, are you really going to be able to keep someone like Michael Proctor in line? And if you're Morrissey, do you want these people to get in trouble? Or are you looking to like slide the line a little bit, let it go? That's a much more common form of corruption than sitting in a dark, dimly lit bar filled with smoke, sliding an envelope across the table saying, here's $1,000 to make this go away. The way corruption would generally work in government is people cover for each other. It doesn't even make them necessarily like they want to do it, but it happens because they don't want to hurt their friends or the people they like or the people they trust, or they know things about each other. So you kind of have to do it. And that's what this feels like, much more than they sit around one day and say, let's just, decide to frame someone. Right. But if Lally didn't work with Proctor so much, might he be a little more authoritative and say, listen, guy, where's the fucking evidence?
Yes, he would have.
Like,
Yeah, he would have.
What are we doing here? Okay. And in normal prosecutors' offices and the way you work with police officers, there is a relationship there, and it can be complicated. And when I was a young DA in Manhattan, we actually had training on, you're going to get grisly detectives that are first grade detectives, which is the highest level in the NYPD, who are locking up murderers when you were in diapers, who are going to say, who is this 25-year-old twit trying to tell me what to
How
do?
to do my job. Yeah.
Right. And you know what? You shouldn't be, because the grisly first grade detective knows 1,000 times more. But the point is, there is a dynamic, and, the relationships are different. The power structure can be different. But at the end of the day, if there is a problem with evidence to be disclosed, ultimately the prosecutor is the one, not the cop, who has to say, what are we doing here?
Right.
And a lot of times it's the prosecutor who will tell the detective or even a police officer, like, listen, we need to do this, we need to do that. Sometimes the detective will say, we should do this, we should do that. There's a give and take, but ultimately it's the prosecutor, as you said, where the buck stops with what has to be. You are the one who is a member of the legal profession. You have an ethical code. You're subject to all kinds of ethical representations, not the cops. I mean, if you get sworn in as a witness, you're obligated to tell the truth, obviously.
Right.
But, Proctor doesn't get in trouble in a literal sense for just not turning over evidence to Lally. Lally gets in trouble for not turning over evidence to the defense and not using due diligence before he represents that I did, only to say 4 years later, oh, I just found out about it a couple of months ago. Oh, that sucks. Sorry, he was in jail for 4 years waiting.
Yeah, because I was going back, I was just doing a correlation and just try to work with me through this one. But it was like, when we got the dribs and drabs and finally got that last Sallyport video in January of 2025, after an entire trial Karen had gone through, it was insane and it was so shocking. And when I felt like there was nothing left in me that would be like, nothing shocks me anymore, that truly did. But what was even more shocking was us learning from Brennan that Proctor said he had gotten it back in 2022. All of this evidence was allegedly in the detective folder, just chilling, and he had requested it years prior, and it just never was produced. So that was when I think a lot of our minds changed from Lally being just making the donuts every day to there being either, like you're saying, at this point now when we're looking, this is negligence at best, and at worst we're looking at something truly scary with that office.
That is correct. And again, based on what Lally said a week or two ago, whatever it was, that there appears to be no training, there appears to be no guidance, there appears to be no tickler system, there appears to be no supervision, there appears to be nothing. Everything you're talking about now, combined with what Lally testified to last week, is why they're going to find themselves a named defendant in the 1983 action, I believe, when that shoe drops, whenever that will be.
You've shown that, Pat. You've been able to establish that pattern. And when the negligent and lack of training and the lack of discovery, you need all of those elements to meet the moral claim, right? Yeah.
Monell. Monell versus the city.
Monell.
Yeah.
M-O-N.
Yeah, again, you generally cannot sue prosecutors because of immunity.
Right.
There are other exceptions, like if they were part of the investigation rather than the prosecution, you can. This is way beyond like Twitter law school stuff, so it's not worth getting into.
Yes.
But Monell allows, a theory of negligent supervision, lack of training, and a systemic pattern as a result. And Lally pretty much established it himself last week. So I'm sure they'll
testifying in one sit down, and Rosemary gets another crack at him on Tuesday. So, Mr. Bederow, as usual, you are my favorite. You are a legal mind, a voice of reason, the defense attorney that has changed my actual life, because you have made me want to, not blowing smoke, like literally, me, Tiny Jesus, and Mary love you very much, about like how much you have taught us. And it has been like a pleasure. And I can't believe that we did this for the first time exactly 1 year ago. And I thank you for all the times that you've come to my house, and my proverbial YouTube house.
I know.
And that this has been a wild ride, and I look forward to always learning from you, and that, we will see what happens next. I know will you be in court on the 13th?
I will be on Zoom, but I'll have a lot.
You will be zooming.
On Zoom in a half a suit from Parts Unknown.
Parts Unknown. Well, until then, I bid you adieu. I thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Enjoy Breaking Bad tonight with the boy.
Well, we're at a good part. We're at the end of season 4, and if people watch it, they know we're at the demise of Gus Fring part. So he's in for a good one tonight.
All right. Well, bye-bye, Mr. Bederow. Loveys, we did it. We had our year friendship anniversary with Mr. Bederow, and a year on YouTube. And to all of you who have put up with me for 364 days, you deserve a reward, an award. I don't know. Okay. So here it is. I love your face, and I'll talk to you soon. We'll be here for a morning show on Tuesday morning if you're free. All right. Bye, loveys.
All right. Great job on the news.
Thank you.
We will, Courtney and I will share what happened when we went to dinner last night, Sunday dinner coming up. And as